Hi everybody, your old pal Todd Dammit Kerns here. Today's episode brought to you by Clocks and Colors Jewelry, an amazing jewelry company out of Canada that I love. Today's guest, my very dear friend. I'm a huge fan of this guy, one of the best guitar players on the planet. He plays with the Dead Daisies currently, but he has been with Whitesnake, Dio, the list goes on, ladies and gentlemen. Please say hello to my dear friend, Doug Aldrich. Ow!
Now.
Okay.
We got all the sketchy stuff out of the way before we were recording. All the people we were talking
I have
to.
one in like 1 minute. I got to grab my eggs out of the water though.
Go ahead. I think this makes for the most interesting part of the show. You having to run and get eggs out of the water.
Because you know what happens if I don't get my eggs? It's
I know.
All bets are off.
Protein in the morning. I know it's an important thing.
I know. It was like, dude, I had a weird night because I got I'm renting this place where I'm staying right now. It's like 2 houses down from my house. It's under massive construction right now.
Oh, I remember you. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
And I installed cameras over there so that I could keep an eye on stuff. You know, even because my studio's over there, which is alarmed, but I wanted to have cameras to see what was going on and in case somebody came around. So this morning, my wife wakes me up at like 5 and she's like, "Babe, somebody's at the house." I'm like, "That's probably the work guys. Let me sleep." She goes, No, it's 5 a.m. I go, "Whoa." So I go running over there with a baseball bat and this guy comes jumping out the window.
No way.
Yeah. And,
oh my God.
And I was up, you know, he said he was sorry. And I said, "Don't come back. I'm watching you."
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. He was on a bike. It was just, you know, unfortunately those times are here, but I couldn't go back to sleep. So I was watching I'd never seen the Van Halen live at Hollywood Bowl I guess it was from 2015.
Right. Yeah. One of the last ones. I think it was the last show, wasn't it?
Yeah. I wanted to go to that, but there was no way to get a ticket.
No, I know.
But it was amazing. I mean, his playing. Have you seen that show?
I've seen pieces of it. I haven't watched the whole thing. I really should sit down and watch the whole thing. Yeah.
His playing is just. I mean, he's like. It's not. There's no overdubs. I mean, he's playing it, and it's perfect. Let me just. Can we pause it for 2 seconds?
Yeah, of course. Let's pause. Watch this.
I'll be right back.
He's got to go get eggs, everybody. We'll be right back.
Perfect.
And we're back. Look at that. See, that's how it's done. Perfect.
It's cooking at its finest.
I love you have the Christmas tree. It's it's the perfect time to be playing this, like right around the Christmas season. It's the whole thing.
Yeah, we went in early this year because you know, with COVID with the kids, it was like something to look forward to because Thanksgiving is going to be basically pretty mellow.
I know we're actually, I think Christmas is going to be pretty mellow for us this year too. It's all sort of like everybody stay at home. We put the tree up pretty much. It's like Halloween's over and it's like, let's put the tree up. You know, it's like, whatever.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we did too. Something fun to do. And then the elf, you know, the elf.
No.
There's this story of this elf that will come to your house and watch. And basically every night the elf will go back to where's the North Pole?
The North Pole, sure, yeah.
And then the elf comes back the next morning in a different spot. And you're not allowed to touch the elf, but the elf is always watching.
Is this the elf on the shelf kind of looking thing? Okay, yeah.
So I read the story for the first time to my daughter last night. And I haven't seen the elf yet. I don't know where he is, but he's somewhere around here.
Maybe he's got an eye on your house too, making sure dudes aren't breaking in. It's like it's a similar security system. It just happens to be related to Santa Claus.
Yeah, you know, well, yeah, he's watching. These elves are super powerful. You know, they can do a lot of things.
That's true. Yeah. Well, if you watch Lord of the Rings, those are different kinds of elves. But we could go on here. I think we've headed down a rabbit hole.
How have you been?
Great. It's been busy. You know, it's been busy with. It's weird to be busy when we're not doing what we do, isn't it? It's like, I mean, every time I talk to somebody like any of us, it's sort of like, this is the longest I've been off stage in, well, ever. You know, it's like that kind of thing. It's like, it's just surreal to be 8 months in. Have you been doing any at the Dead Daisies? Been doing any sort of streaming type things or anything like that?
We've done a few things. We've got some. We've got a new single coming out. I'm going to start doing some promo for, and part of that promo is going to be some people sent in for a Zoom guitar lesson, competition, and then we're doing like a live. We do a bunch of live Facebook stuff, and you know, just keeping busy, trying to keep all our friends and fans interacting with us, and so we have a record that's been done for a while. We've just been kind of like putting out a song here and there, but it actually comes out. It's called Holy Ground, and it comes out January 22nd. So when was it intended to come out initially? It was intended, I think, for April. Okay, so yeah, and we had, you know, obviously we were going to tour around it, whatever, but we pushed the tour. It was like, man, remember how weird it was? It was like, okay, this is going to be going on for a couple weeks now. 100%. Yeah. And then, so we booked the tour in for June or something, and I was like, June, man, I can't wait that long. I know. Yeah. What am I going to do for like 8 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever? It's like, now you're like 8 months later, and you're like, damn, it's been the fastest and shortest, but yet the longest and slowest year of my life. It's like, to say, like, it felt like it was going so long, and then all of a sudden you're like, it's November? What? It's Christmas time? You know, like the whole thing was just really hard to wrap my head around. Yeah. Well, I don't know how it's been. You're in Vegas, right? I'm in Vegas, yeah. So I don't know how it's been there, but here in LA, it's been like 80 degrees still. So it's like the endless summer, and I didn't even know what month it was. I just knew that Christmas was coming up, and I got to get the tree up. But it is winding down. The year is winding down pretty much. We got another month and 6 weeks or whatever. Well, I don't know about you, but it wasn't that long ago when people started talking about, like, there won't be shows until 2021. And I remember going like, that's crazy. What are you talking about? Like, you know, and now here we are. Same thing. I thought for sure, you know, okay, maybe June's not going to work out, but definitely by October we'll be going. And and then we moved those shows until February of next year, which is probably not going to happen either. So at that point, I think we will just straight out have to cancel and then wait until the world's ready. And you know, but it is what it is. We got to roll it. I actually, my wife got COVID. Did she really? Wow. Yeah. And she probably doesn't want me telling everybody, but I figure it's probably good for people to know. I mean, I actually know quite a few people who've you know, been touched by it in one way or another. So yeah. Well, so basically she got it from a girlfriend. It was like a mother's wine hangout Sunday. Sure, yeah. And she found out that the girl. She found out later that the girl had been positive, and I was like, oh man. So she went into quarantine, but she didn't have. So she tested negative twice. Wow. And I thought, okay, you know, we're out of the woods, so she can come out of the room. I let my daughter go back to school, and then she started feeling symptoms. Oh no. And then she got tested, and it was positive. Wow. So she went back full lockdown, and fortunately, in this rental place, it's got a bathroom situation that's like it's closed off with another door, so it's almost like, you know, you got two doors you got to go through to get to her. So I would just leave food out. But the thing is you know, it's like, it's almost like you know, like you're a criminal or something. And, yeah, kind of, yeah. You know, people, so that's why she probably wouldn't want me to say anything, but right. We did the right thing, and I'm so proud of her because she ended it. She didn't pass it to anybody. Yeah. me and the kids didn't get sick, and we, you know, had been tested now, and she's negative now, and you know, but it was just like, I lost the babysitter, could not take my daughter to preschool. My son was already home, but it was like, I went into full lockdown dad
Wow.
mode, having my little daughter with me all the time, and couldn't do anything. I had to do something for the Dead Daisies, like a Facebook test thing.
Sure.
And she was jumping in front of the camera and tackling and all this stuff. And I'm just like, sorry guys, you know, there's nothing I can do. And
What are you gonna do?
Yeah, they let me off the hook. But
That makes for great viewing, though. I mean, there's a reality show there waiting just to see Doug Aldrich raised, you know, stuck with his kids in lockdown for. I mean, how long ago was this?
This was about 2 weeks ago. She got freed.
My
She
God.
came out of jail, lockdown. But it was very difficult, and it was like after a couple days, I'm like, okay, I just got to deal with this. You know,
Yeah.
like you, I've never been home this long, ever.
No.
And it's like it messes with your mind, you know.
Yeah, it does, yeah. But it's a blessing, and I don't know about you, but it's been awesome. Like for a while, you know, I was enjoying it. I felt guilty for enjoying it so much because of what was going on and how tragic the whole damn thing was. But I was really enjoying being home and just, you know, that it's a weird thing. I've been calling it retirement practice, you know, like, I guess this is what life will be once we start just staying home, puttering around the house, watch a show, you know, and like I think I've learned to enjoy it too much, but at the same time, there's a part of me that's kind of like waiting for that call, like, boom, let's go, like, and just run out the door, you know.
I'm definitely there. I mean, we've been keeping busy, and that's been the challenging part, is we've been busy doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
With the Dead Daisies promotion wise and all this, but also balancing that with like juggling that with parenting and then finding, you got to find your own, like I got to find my Doug time. You got to find your Dammit time.
Yeah, exactly. I know.
You need to be like full Dammit.
I know. Yeah. I know. That's the weird thing about being on the road, is people assume it's just like, you know, just it's on all the time, but there's quite a bit of reflective, meditative, whether it's on a plane or a bus or in a hotel room by yourself. And you can be creative and you can read a book if you want, you know, but when, you know, in lockdown or whatever, when you're home, it's sort of like it's full on. No one really talks about the family life of the musician or rock star or movie star or anything like that. I mean, you have all the same responsibilities as the guy coming home from a regular job. It just happens to be you play guitar for a living. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's also like, you know, people would go like, how are you finding? Are you getting more practice in? I'm like, actually, no, I'm getting less practice in because of just everything that we got to do. But like you said, I made friends with it months ago, and it is a blessing because
it is.
I've been always in and out of the house, and this summer, and it has been great to be with. I got a 4.5-year-old daughter, so it's
totally,
like,
yeah.
And now it's like if I want to go check on my house that's being worked on or whatever, I'm like, okay, Ruby, I'll be back in 2 minutes, and you know, my son's here and my wife's here, everybody's here. I'll be right back.
And she's like,
yeah, no.
Yeah.
Don't leave me, Daddy. Don't leave me, please. I'm like, just wait. I promise you 2 minutes. I'm just going to go check it out. And then I'll come back and she's like, Daddy, don't leave me anymore. You know, it's so good, you know?
That's heartbreaking. It's going to be tough that day you're actually able to go do whatever it is that we do. You know, I mean, that's going to be.
I will. It'll be a bummer. But then when you get to the airport, you'll be like, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Where is the home base for the Dead Daisies anyway? Is it based out of the States?
Well, Glenn and I are here.
Yeah.
You know, because
yeah.
Talked about it, because we got Glenn, and he's just unbelievable, as you know, and he is in Palos Verdes, Rancho Palos Verdes. I'm in Sherman Oaks in the Valley, and then Dino is up in north of Portland.
Oh, is he up there now?
Yeah, he's in Salem. I guess it's north. I'm not sure, but in Salem, Oregon, and David's got a spot in New York that he basically works at. So when he's not on the road or recording, he's
in the city or
in Manhattan.
Okay, wow,
a nice spot there. He does he does business, a lot of Wall Street stuff or whatever.
That's great. Yeah. It's funny these days, isn't it? Like back in the day, you couldn't imagine. You came to California, you came to Los Angeles, you put a band together. Everybody lived within a half hour of each other at least. I mean, I'm talking depending on traffic, but I'm saying like it's just sort of you went to rehearsal. We all drove to, like everybody lived in the same city. But now it's rare for me to actually meet, especially during what we're dealing with now, when it's sort of like, well, maybe we can get together and do a live streaming thing. And it's like, most bands, everybody is all over the country and sometimes out of country.
Yeah.
And you're literally doing streaming stuff by everybody's, playing to tracks or whatever from around the world. It's crazy.
Yeah. That's what. Yeah, it's bizarre. I mean, I was just talking to another buddy of mine in Vegas, and he was like, "So have you seen anybody?" I'm like, "Nobody's in LA anymore. Everyone's either in Vegas or Nashville." And so Vegas is really happening. I mean, everybody is. A lot of people are in Vegas.
Well, I think I've always referred to it as a distant suburb of Los Angeles, in that it's. Everybody I know from LA who wants to still have a life in LA or the ability to let's meet at Mates or let's do whatever, still wants to be close enough that they can either hop on a 40-minute flight or just hop in the car and drive there in 3-4 hours, whatever, Yeah. That's why Nashville, as awesome as Nashville is, it's always a very difficult thing for me to wrap my head around because LA is still home base no matter what, I mean, like I've been splitting my time between here and there this entire time, just working on whatever we can work on.
I knew. I saw some pictures of you guys who were in the middle of working, right?
Yeah, well, I would say in the middle of the beginning of working. So it's still very early days. Again, we have the same problem because everybody is, Seattle, and I mean, a bunch of us are here, and then of course Slash is in Los Angeles. But you know what I want to pick your brain about, because I was thinking about this the other day when I was thinking about you. And it was always like, I always remember you like flipping through magazines and going, hey, there's that guy. And you were like, I think the first time probably was Lion. And then the next time it's kind of like, oh, he's in Hurricane now. And it was kind of like, all I knew was Doug Aldrich, the blonde guitar player, hot dog guitar player. And I just watch your thing kind of just continually grow that way. And I often think, because when you look at your resume, what's really fascinating, I talked to Glenn Hughes about this too, because I have a similar thing where when people go, you're the guy from that thing, or and every time they say that thing, it's a different thing than what the last guy said, you're from that thing. It's like, it's interesting because, I often think like how interesting it would have been to, I don't know, be in Aerosmith at 23 years old and then be 65 and still be in Aerosmith. But you and I have had the kind of careers where it's like, I did this at 23 and now I, in a crazy, career, now you're doing this completely different thing. Although you're doing exactly the same thing. It's a really interesting journey you've been on the whole time with a guitar in your hands. You know what I mean? Like,
time flies and you think about it and think about all the things you've done, and it just seems like it just blasted past, but I'm still doing it, so there's still time to get it right,
Well, I always quote that Kiss song, God Gave Rock and Roll to You, and there's that line in it that always, every time I hear it, I get this little shiver where he says, Paul Stanley says, it's never too late to work 9 to 5, and I always go, amen, brother. It's never too late. Yeah. At any point, no one comes along and pats you on the back and says, here's your gold watch. Thank you for all your service in rock and roll. It's kind of like one day the phone stops ringing and then you're like, I guess I'm a Walmart reader, so guys like you and I are like to be still doing this and you as upwardly mobile as you've been, it's inspiring to see, you keep doing it.
I've been super blessed and the thing that people got to understand about the music business is there's definitely a certain amount of luck involved and timing and just being lucky at the right place at the right time. And if I, you mentioned Lion, I really I wanted that band to be the, you know, my Aerosmith or my Whitesnake.
Sure, yeah.
And I thought we were on a good way, but we had signed a bad record deal and couldn't. We made a good record, but we couldn't get any support. And so eventually, long story short, the band broke up. And that's when previously to joining Hurricane, I had passed on a lot of offers for things, including Dio, which I did end up working with Dio later. But but I just did. I was hoping, you know, I had jammed with Ronnie one day, and they were looking for a guitar player, and he said, you know, I want you to. I mean, I played one chord, and he was like, okay, I want you in the band. And
wow,
we went to the
best audition ever.
It was, yeah. I mean, it happened so fast. It kind of scared me because I was like, I'm not ready to give up we were all living in one apartment, and our equipment was my 4x12 cabinets was our kitchen table, and then, you know.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So when you do a gig, you know, the whole house was empty. Basically, your gear was your furniture, and so I was like, I don't want to leave these guys. I mean, I know we're struggling with this record, but we're gonna make it. We're gonna get out.
Of course, yeah.
And so a few offers I passed on, and then later I realized, okay, now I've got to look at some other options, and I had the same management as Hurricane, and so they said, hey, they're looking for somebody who want to jump in and do a record and a tour, and so we did that, and then went on and on. But I feel like I got an opportunity to work with Ronnie again, and I was like, all right, I'm ready to do it.
Yeah.
And we met at the pub like the day after Christmas, and I said, so Ronnie, you know, how's it going? He goes, yeah, good, man, good to see you. And we're making this record and want to see if you want to do a couple solos on it. You know, I was like, no, I want to do everything. I want to do all of it, you know? And he goes, okay, start tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
So that was it. And then we made this record called Killing the Dragon. And that really was like being a late bloomer. That kind of was the first gig that put me out there that had people. I mean, I had a few people that knew who I was, but that.
Yeah, but you were saying late bloomer. You were still a kid. I mean, when I think back on that stuff, you must have been a very young man when all this stuff was going on.
No, I was in late 30s, I think.
Oh, were you already doing? Yeah, I suppose by that point, Ronnie, yeah.
And he put me out there, and then of course David Coverdale put back Whitesnake together, and it was funny because we were Dio. This was 2002. It was like classic hard rock and metal was coming back hard, and Ronnie. We had this great tour where we were supporting Deep Purple and Scorpions. Wow. And then Scorpions came and said, and we were doing like, you know, the Sheds. The first time I had really done all the Sheds and all that stuff. And we were backstage somewhere, and the manager for the Scorpions came up and said, hey, Ronnie, we're going to do this tour next year with a co-headline with Whitesnake. And do you want to do it? And Ronnie passed on it. He wanted to make a record, but I'm sitting there going, Whitesnake's coming back. No way. You know, he was talking to Sykes and all this stuff. And then a couple weeks later, the Deep Purple guys came to me and said, hey, you know, that Coverdale's been asking about you. And I was like, what? And he called me and he said, you know, what do you think about doing? I'm going to do a 2-month tour. And that's how you know, these tours happen like that, where someone will say, hey, oh, I need you for 2 months.
Yeah. And you're thinking to yourself, yeah, I could bust off 2 months of the calendar. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I asked Ronnie and he goes, yeah, you can do 2 months. But 2 months turned into a lot, like 12 years. And it was just like a perfect fit. We had a lot of fun. But then my son got to an age where I really needed to be home, which is the same age as my daughter now. Mm-hmm. And that's basically how I tapped out of the whole touring thing for a couple of years. Yeah. And that's when the Vegas gig came up.
Of course. I mean, the best thing about things like Raiding the Rock Vault is that ability. I'd sort of checked out when I first came to Vegas. I sort of found myself more like doing stuff around town. And it was the same thing, because I was that guy who, you know, I lived in Vancouver, Canada, which is like Los Angeles plus expensive. You know what I mean? So it's multiple guys per apartment in apartments. there's gear it's the same story. It's like, you know, so the very idea of like when I would come to Vegas and all my friends owned houses and were making a living playing guitar was like, what? That doesn't make any sense. We were always shocked anybody owned a car. You know, it's like, you know, like, oh, you have a car. It didn't matter if it was, you know, like now it's like, oh, you have that car. You know, it was just, you own a car. We can get some gear from our apartment to the gig. But it's that level of commitment to playing music that we were so in depth on. Until I came here, it was sort of that feeling of like, okay, you know, and then things like Raiding the Rock Vault are the kind of things where you can raise a family and have a regular life and still go out and play rock star at night. But guys like you and guys like me, it's just a matter of time before the road comes calling again anyway. It's just...
Well, it's also the thing is that gig, it was great for that time, but I just found out that being in one spot didn't suit me for a long time.
It's not for everybody, yeah.
It just, so I did it for about a year full on, and then I started to kind of fade out. And it was actually Glenn Hughes calling me and saying, hey, I'm doing my band guitar player is not available. He's doing something else. And I want to
Was that like Soren Anderson?
Yeah.
He's amazing too, yeah.
He's a great player, great dude, really great dude. And
he's like Dutch or something, isn't he?
He's Danish.
Danish, yeah. Sorry.
He's a great Dane.
Great Dane.
And
Soren Anderson, look him up, everybody. Yeah.
You know who another? I mean, there's a lot of famous Danish, but the other great Dane is Mike Tramp. He was a great.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
But anyways, back to the story. He called and said Soren wasn't available, and would I be interested in doing like a trio, like kind of like a trapeze type thing?
Totally, yeah.
That would be great, man. That sounds awesome. And it was the best on-stage jamming I've ever experienced.
I bet.
And he's just, you know, everybody knows how monstrous he is, but it's not until you have played with the main team, but when you play with him, you realize this guy is just not only, I mean, everyone knows he's the voice of rock. He's an amazing singer, but his bass playing is just so insane. His tone.
I know.
I remember that I would be at sound check and the drummer at Pontus would be playing and doing the sound check, you know, and they would always tell me, don't go on stage until we need you, because of course us guitar players, we like to noodle around and stuff.
Yeah.
I was sitting out front waiting, and then Glenn gets on stage and puts his bass on. He just kind of mildly walks out, and then just all of a sudden, and it was just like, whoa, that sounds like it's even bigger out front.
Yeah.
I was like, you don't even need a guitar with this guy.
I know.
He really could be just bass, singing, and drums. And
absolutely,
it would be enough. And so it was a blast. We would like play some of his stuff from Deep Purple and his solo stuff. We did a Whitesnake song that I had written with David and some other
cool
stuff. But the fun part was like doing stuff like Mistreated, where he would go, okay, we'll start with this, you know, you start on the solo and then I'll come in and do some stuff and then we'll just see where it goes and then we'll end up on the melody. And this jam was every night just so rewarding. It was like,
yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff is lost in a lot of ways. You know, like when you would listen to like, you know, we're from the same thing. Because I had a long conversation about how, you know, I would just call up Beatles songs from the early days and I'd say, these songs aren't even 2.5 minutes long. Like you're kind of staggered to see how much is going on in 2 minutes and 14 seconds of I Want to Hold Your Hand or something like that.
Yeah.
And then like within 5 years, it became, you know, Dazed and Confused would be stretched out for 20 minutes, you know what I mean? But I love that kind of stuff and the ability to be able to kind of like, and like you say, I'm assuming those jams are somewhat structured, but once you kind of like, you're into the song, then you get into the jam section, it becomes kind of however it feels tonight is different than last night and different than tomorrow night.
Yeah. It's with 3 people, there's something about magic of 3, as you know, being Canadian Rush.
Yes.
Magic of 3 is something it's hard to put a thing on it, because with 3 guys, you can play off each other so easily. As soon as you put a 4th guy in it, it multiplies, you know, E equals MC squared, you know, that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
You do know that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't know that I do, but
Yes, you do, Todd. You are.
yeah, okay. Yeah.
No, wait a minute. Everybody, Dammit Kerns is probably, I would say, pound for pound, you might have the highest IQ of anybody that I know.
Wow.
I think.
Woo! You got to
Like,
make more
you're
friends,
like
Doug Aldrich.
Kind of thing, you know, like the Canadian guy that's like.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, me and Neil Peart sitting around smoking pipes, reading big books. Yeah, I don't know. Neil was a very proven, the professor they called him. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that. Thank you, Doug.
No, but anyway, so yeah, jamming with 3 guys is just it's magical, and so you can just play off each other for as long as you want.
It also creates a dynamic, and not to cut you off, but that sort of feeling. I'm a big fan of, like, say, Zeppelin, because Zeppelin isn't, or any of those bands, The Who, where it's technically a 3-piece band with a singer out front. Right. So the musical aspect, when Jimmy Page goes for a guitar solo, there's no rhythm guitar to carry that, and I always kind of like dig that. You know, a lot of guys, Slash is not a fan of that. Slash has always wanted that second guitar to kind of carry the weight, so when he moves into the solo, it's still there. But I always kind of dig that feeling of, like, when you start stepping out in a 3-piece band or without a second guitar player or a keyboard to kind of hold that down, then you really kind of are out on your own limb there. And guys like Glenn, although guys like Glenn, it's basically like having a rhythm guitar player and a bass player at the same time anyway.
He does this stuff with the Dead Daisies on this record, and even we had a rehearsal. We actually got into a bubble at one point about 6 weeks ago, and got in a rehearsal situation to play all these new songs. And man, what a feeling that was, playing, you know, playing loud and with Dean and everything, and David. And so yeah, we were just going through stuff, and Glenn plays, like, I'll be soloing and he'll be soloing at the same time, and it works. It's so cool. It's like it's like playing with, I can imagine it'd be like how we would playing with Jack Bruce or something, you know?
Totally, absolutely.
Eddie, you know, like would be. So yeah, it's awesome.
I mean, Glenn is it's a staggering thing regardless, because, you know, most guys, you know, he's been around, and all the guys that are his contemporaries are struggling as vocalists. Not all of them, but a lot of them are. And Glenn is as strong today as he was 40 years ago. You know, I mean, it's staggering. It's
freakish.
It's superhuman. Yeah, it really is. Yeah,
he really is. And, you know, and it's not lost to me that I've worked with Ronnie and David and now Glenn, and it's just like how lucky that's what I mean. The luck came.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the luck is also, and I think that you, on top of being immensely talented and that guy that, like, whenever your name comes up, there's always a yeah, I'll just keep pouring it on you. You know, it's I've never had anybody, like, even when I post about talking to you, it's just like, oh, dude, Doug is, you know, everybody loves your guitar playing. But as you know, as well as I do, in putting bands together, having been in situations where you've seen side guys kind of come and go, I've always been a big believer that the music business, probably like any business really, is based upon your abilities, but it's also your ability to hang. If you're, you know, it's like all you need is that one guy you'll always pick the guy he's not as talented as that guy, but he's amazing dude, and I love hanging out with him. That other guy is like really talented, but he's got a drug problem, or his wife's a nightmare, you know, or whatever the problem is. There's something going on.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. That's what when people tell me, you know, that they want me to give a kid advice about stuff. It'd be like, okay, you gotta practice and work hard and learn music, but you know, it's also about your personality, because if you can't hang with other people, they're not going to want to be on it. They're not going to choose you to work with them, because it's like being in a marriage when you're in a band. And people say that, but it's really true. I mean, you spend probably more time with the band than with your real marriage situation.
100%.
if you can't hang out together, then it doesn't matter how good you are.
No, because you're stuck on planes and in shuttles to the airport from the health. You know, I mean, it's like the whole. You're kind of in each other's pocket from the minute you leave your house till the day you get home, really.
And that's the thing, and you know, as better than anybody, is like, you know, traveling is not as easy and it's not as glamorous as people think.
It never is, yeah.
It used to be Marco Mendoza, another amazing bass player. You saw this. He's like, dude, man, it's not. I get paid to be. I play for free. I get paid to do this other stuff. Travel. I'll play all day for free, you know, and so that's really true. It's
yeah, it really is, yeah.
So when you're in those travel situations and you got somebody that's moaning all the time or something, and it's like, yeah, this is I'm gonna stay away from this guy or whatever.
And that person never usually lasts very long. He'll usually phase himself out, or just, you know, it's the nature of, and like you say, it's always a good thing to pass on to that next generation, which a lot of my talking to my friends like this is sort of like, hopefully some kid somewhere in Des Moines, Iowa is going like, well, I want to do this. How do I do this? How did Doug do this? You know, but a lot of it is the ability to be able to, obviously you got to hold your own. You can't just come in and be like, well, he's terrible, but what a great guy. It was like, that doesn't quite work that way. You know, I was going to ask you really quickly. So you grew up where? I've always been unclear.
The East Coast. And I grew up, I was born in North Carolina. And then we moved to Pennsylvania. And then we moved to Maryland, outside of Washington, D.C. And that's where I started playing guitar, was in Maryland. And then
what was the impetus for that? It was, you know, like when you talk to like Hugh McDonald or something like that, which is, I love these stories, like the Howard Leese, where they're old enough to have seen, I saw the Beatles on Sullivan and the next day the world changed. You know what I mean? Like, I love that story, but you guys like you and me, it's like we were too young to have had that experience. But I mean,
I started playing before I never saw music on TV. I heard it on the radio and I loved it. But I started playing guitar out of boredom, because it was a summer and my buddies, we used to skateboard and
right.
It was in between sports, you know, there wasn't anything happening. And my buddies we used to hang and ride bikes and do that stuff were gone for the summer camp or whatever, vacation. And I'm sitting there going, what can I do? There's nothing, there was nothing, as you know, to do. So my younger sister, Janet, she had a classical guitar and a book. And
oh, wow.
I was just like, well, let me try that, and see. And I'll never forget that day. I picked up the guitar and opened the book and learned how to play a D chord, and it just went from there. And I fell in love with it. And I finally, talked to my mom about helping me get a Sears. It's a, Sears? It was
of course, yeah. We used to drool over the catalog, just the guitar section. We would go, just, they're probably dodgy guitars, but we just loved that, yeah.
They were dodgy guitars, but it's still, it was a Les Paul style guitar. And
totally, yeah.
And I finally got that, and I loved it. I took a couple lessons, but I think I learned more from other people showing me, and I just, and here we are,
I know, it's a funny thing to think. So at what point, was there, once you started getting into that, learning the D chord, the C chord, is it like Van Halen and things like that you come along that you eventually see a guy and go, oh, I want to do that? Is there, yeah.
Man, I was very naive, and I basically played rhythm guitar only strictly through I guess through high school. I mean, I started solo a little bit, but I mean, rhythm was more important for me, and learning those. Me and a couple buddies. I don't know if you know a guy called Jerry Best. He's a friend of mine from high school.
Yeah.
And he's done a lot of.
Sure. Yeah.
A lot of people, but his brother was a drummer and he was a bass player, and I would get my mom to drop me off on Saturday morning or sometimes Friday night, and we'd just spend the whole weekend learning songs and
cool.
So rhythm playing. And then we'd go to concerts, and you speak about Van Halen. I had been to, my first concert was Beach Boys, and that was cool, but
wow.
it didn't blow my mind. Aerosmith came around, and Aerosmith blew my mind.
Yeah.
And it was one of those gigs for Aerosmith where they only played 4 songs because somebody threw a bottle on stage and they left.
Oh no.
But then one day, and we go to concerts and it was like super cheap, $8 or whatever.
Yeah.
And Philadelphia, I was in Philadelphia at that time, and we were going to see this band. I go, who is it we're going to see tonight? And Jerry goes, Van Halen. I was like, Van who?
Is this like first album, second album?
Second album. In
In
the spring of 1979.
Wow.
And it just, I mean,
yeah.
I had started to solo a little bit, but then I saw Eddie and I was like, oh, I mean, we ran to the front. There was no seats in the place. It was general admission. The curtain goes up and I see the amps stacked up 3 high, the cabinets. I was like, whoa, speakers were exposed. And then Eddie did one of those, and I was like, oh my God. You know, and then they came out and they did the thing, and oh man, I couldn't speak for 2 days after that.
I bet, yeah.
I just smoked my ass. And it never occurred to me when I was a kid going to concerts that the band probably was in town, you know, the night before, or maybe they had a day off and hanging out, you know.
Sure, yeah.
It never even occurred to me to go early to try and see the band coming to the venue, or the stuff that, you know, we make friends with those people.
Totally.
They bring us food sometimes. And
yeah, exactly, yeah.
But yeah, so Van Halen, circling back to that show last night, I was just thinking about, man, he still sounds just as good.
Well,
and Wolf Van Halen, Wolfgang, he blew my mind. I had seen them play with Wolf, but I mean, this concert was really, you could hear everything, and man, he was incredible.
Well, you have to take into account, I think the interesting thing, not to spend too much time on Van Halen, but the thing that I always really think about is bands like Aerosmith are starting to fall apart at this time. Black Sabbath is falling apart. Like the kings of that rock were kind of like, you know, there was issues going on. And then these young guys show up. I mean, Van Halen, I mean, the thing that's the most exciting about Van Halen is when you think around Women and Children First or Fair Warning, where they're pretty much the biggest band in the country, really. They don't really have any hits on the radio, but they're filling like hockey arenas, and no one could touch these guys. You know, like no one could touch. That's the best guitar player on the planet, period. Like everybody knows that. And then the rest of this band, you know, collectively has that chemistry that's just like everything we talked about, you know, I mean, that's the other side of it is having a band like Van Halen that lives on for, you know, up until just recently, with multiple member changes, but it really still is the same thing. But that,
so who is it for you? Who is it that you saw that made you go?
Well, it's the same thing for me, dude, because like I remember the same things happening in small towns, and if you didn't go on family vacation that summer and you're stuck in town while all your friends went on family vacation, it was like, it's funny when you brought that up, because I remember those summers where it was like you would literally make friends with other guys you never normally hung out with, and so a lot of that stuff comes up too. But bands like Kiss, bands like, you know, I mean, I always loved the Beatles and stuff. They're all represented here, but yeah, but you know, stuff like that. But you know, it was things like the Who and some of the punk rock that actually made us pick up guitars, because like looking at Eddie Van Halen, it was like no one can do this. Yeah, you have to be from like outer space to be able to play like that. It wasn't until we kind of fell into the other thing and had some friend show you those 3 chords and you realized a million songs were based around these 3 chords, and you went like, oh cool. And then you make a horrible racket with your friends and drive your parents crazy. But you know, that's, I mean, when I look at you, when you say you were predominantly hanging in rhythm guitar world, I'm like, damn, that's pretty impressive. Although the fact that Slash didn't really even start playing guitar until he was 15 years old, where, you know, a lot of people were already like up and running by 15 years old. But there is something to be said about that. When you find it and you just head down that rabbit hole, clearly by the time you...
The story with Slash, like who was it for him that got him started?
Aerosmith, Jimmy Page, I think, you know, Joe Perry, guys like that, I think definitely kind of rattled his cage. But it's an interesting thing, because that does seem kind of late for a guy to pick up a guitar entirely and then to go on to be, you know, an icon of that level. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's incredible. He deserves everything that he's gotten.
it's such a feel thing with him, you know, and I think he continues to grow, which I think is an important thing. But for yourself, once you started soloing, you must have just went like.
Well, when I started dabbling in it, but I wasn't really considered. My nickname was Cubby when I was a kid. They used to call me Cubby because I reminded them of Cubby from the Mickey Mouse show, and it bugged the shit out. I hated it. I was like, man, don't call me Cubby. I got out of high school. I got in my car and I drove out to LA. And the first night I ended up at the Troubadour the very first night. And I joined. There was a magazine that it was called The Recycler.
Yeah.
And there was bands in there looking for musicians or guys wanting to start bands, whatever. And I joined a band and we started playing on the Strip.
So did you head out to Los Angeles? Did you know anybody there, or was this a complete backpack? You know? No,
I had been in LA a couple of times because I had an aunt and uncle that lived in a really nice area, and I stayed with them for a couple of days the plan was I was going to go to college, and I was going to go to San Francisco College, so my parents were going to fund it, and I still was going to need to get a job, but I went to the first day of school and I stepped in and I looked around and I was like, nope.
Wow.
I just walked out, and then I told my parents about a week later, and they said, okay, you got to learn to support yourself then, because you're not going to allow you to not go to college.
Sure, yeah.
Which is one of the biggest I regret is not going to college. I really.
Do you?
Yeah, I really wished I would have gone to college, because I mean, really in the scheme of things, when you get out of college, you're 21, you're still a baby.
I know. We don't think about that. At the time, you're like, I'm going to be in here for 2, 3, 4 years. That's just not, I can't do that. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't do it.
Yeah.
That's my whole life.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be 21. Yeah.
But anyway, I just started playing and I started getting more. I mean, I was the only guitar player, so I was soloing. But by that time, I had seen one other guy that blew me away. I mean, of course, I had seen Tony Iommi and Blackmore and a bunch of different people, but Eddie pretty much, stole the show with guitar till I saw Randy Rhoads play.
Yeah.
And same brothers. We showed up. We had the day of the show was day of the show. They were playing I Don't Know on the radio, and the girls go, hey, let's go see Ozzy play tonight. And I went over to their house and we were sitting having dinner and telling his dad, like, hey, what are you guys doing? Who are you going to go see tonight? We go, Ozzy Osbourne. He goes, Ozzy Osbourne? Who named their kid that, And we showed up the day of the concert and got like 4th row seats with Motorhead opening.
Wow.
And Randy came out and smoked my ass so bad.
Oh, I can't imagine.
And I thought, I didn't think there would be anybody. And I thought to myself, he could be just as good or maybe even better, I don't know, than Eddie.
It's a different thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like there's something that kind of what they would refer to as sort of neoclassical elements in there, but there's a real kind of Les Paul Marshall kind of, he was sort of, when you think about how, like when Eddie came out, all these kind of guitars became kind of the thing, but Randy was a Les Paul guy, and he kind of went into that crazy Flying V thing that he had, but he was very sort of like a throwback to like the classic guitar players, and that would kind of go away for a lot of the 80s and then kind of return with guys like Slash and the Les Paul and a Marshall again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, me too. I mean, I started with Les Paul, and then when Eddie came out, I got a Strat and I took a drill and I drilled it out so I could put the humbucker in it.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out how to keep the tremolo in tune. And one day I was just so pissed off and I was just hammering it. And I hit a chord. I'm like, it's in tune.
Wow.
So I figured out the way to tune it. So you tune it so when you used it, it would come back in tune.
Oh.
Then later I learned how to have the tremolo float, and then you could have it so it kind of, as you know all that stuff.
Sure. Yeah. Well, these are early days. I mean, guys like Eddie were really sort of on the cusp of that creation that led to Kaler and Floyd Rose and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. It was. I mean, Eddie broke so much ground with all that technology.
He really did.
I also want to tell you why I respect you so much is because you are a multi-instrument. You can sing, you can play guitar, you can play bass. What else can you do? What else can you
You should see me dance. No, I'm kidding.
I would love to see you dance.
You don't want to see that shit.
But you're an amazing songwriter, and you know so many songs. It's like, I can't remember all this. I'll learn a song and then years go by. And even my own songs, I'll be like, wait a minute, how did I do that? I don't even remember. You're like encyclopedia of music. And is that like, you're just
it's the same. It's the same thing when you bring up like not going to college. It's kind of like just having a talent for being able to kind of, or maybe just sort of an idiosyncrasy of just being able to kind of retain knowledge. Like I said to my wife one day, I go, I have trouble remembering birthdays and all these things, but I still remember lyrics to songs that we played in high school now. You know, it's like, if any of this served any greater purpose other than just to be a musician, then I guess I would have made that my priority.
That's a thing. That is, I mean, to remember lyrics.
That's the hardest thing, dude.
But not for you.
Well, it can be, because you know what it's like as a guitar player. It's kind of like the intro goes like this and the verse goes like this. Like the pieces kind of like, as in musical terms, they repeat, you know what I mean? Where often the lyrics are constantly changing. Hopefully the chorus is the same every time, but it can be tough. That's why Rod Stewart or Steven Tyler or Ozzy Osbourne, these guys have been doing it for hundreds of years, all have teleprompters now, you know.
Well, it helps because it does, you know, everybody gets a brain fart sometimes, and it's not cool when you can't remember your own song, and it's like, it's just, you know it, but it's like, wait a minute, it's just.
Yeah, and people drop $300 to come see you play, and you don't know the words to your own song. Right. But it's also one of those ways to prove that you're not on tape, isn't it?
True. Yeah.
You know, what I was going to ask you though is so when you get to LA, does Lion get put together in Los Angeles? I was never sure if you.
Later, I kind of went around the, you know, well, actually, what happened was I was playing with this band, and this girl comes up and goes, "Hey, you know, Kiss is looking for a guitar player, and I think that you'd be really good for it." I was like, I thought she was jiving me, you know.
I was looking forward to you telling this story, because this is one of those stories that I've heard in the mythos for years, and I'm like, Doug Aldrich tried out for Kiss. I got to hear this story.
Yeah, so it was. So then a couple weeks later, we were playing again, and she came and she brought Eric Carr, and Eric invited me. By that time, my phone had been cut off. I didn't have any communication, but I was working at a music store, and so I gave him that number, and one day he called me and goes, "Come down and meet the guys." And by the way, he showed up at the gig with no makeup, which was just bizarre, because these guys, you didn't know what they really looked like.
No, not at all.
Kind of like, am I sure that's really him, you know? But then he said, "Come down to the record plant and meet the guys." And I guess I was 18.
Wow.
And he said, I think you're really good, and I think you'd be perfect for the band, you know, come play. So I met the guys, and I was playing over, they were working on Creatures of the Night.
Oh, wow.
And Gene said, "Okay, I want you to play over this." I think there's War Machine on that record.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So he wanted me to
E, I think.
Yeah, he wanted me to solo on that, but it was a weird riff. I had never heard a riff like that before, and it was kind of throwing me a little bit. And he goes, "Well, can you do?" And he was like, "You know, you're playing great, but maybe throw in some major pentatonic in that." And I was like, he goes, "The major scale," and I go, "What is that?" He goes, "You know, do, re, mi, fa." And so Gene's singing it for me, the major scale. And I go, "Oh yeah, I know that. Okay." I knew it, I just didn't know what it was called.
Sure, yeah.
So long story short, we jammed a couple times, and it was first time playing through big Marshalls, like 4 Marshall stacks, all for me. And we, you know, playing Black Diamond with those guys. I didn't realize that was like their stairway to heaven at the time.
Right,
you know?
right.
And I got called back for a second audition. By that time, I was starting to get freaked out. I didn't have a car at the time. My car broke between the first audition and the second audition. And
ouch.
My buddy brought me, and it was just getting surreal. And they were talking about, you know, who they were dating, famous actresses. And Diana Ross and this and that. And I'm just like this kid, and I'm sitting there. I go take a leak, and I'm going to the bathroom. I'm taking a leak, and here comes Gene standing next to me. I'm just like, what? I guess this is what happens. You just go to LA and you join a band, a big band, and that's what happens, you know?
Yeah.
But I was just too young, and they knew it, you know?
Right, yeah.
It got me serious to where I was like, okay, I don't know what I did, but I did something right. I got to keep working hard. And that's when I really started to buckle down and start to really try and learn about music. And I got very serious after
So
that.
that's the gig that I guess eventually went to Vinnie Vincent. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And the funny part of the story, which I've told it a million times, everyone in our party area knows this, but Gene gave me his number. He goes, hey, here's 3 songs to learn for the first jam, and if you need any help with anything, call me.
Wow.
And I never called him. I just showed up. But when they were coming around on tour, for that tour, I thought, well, my guys that were in pre-Lion, I was like, let's see if we can all go to the show and we'll get backstage maybe or whatever, you know, at least I didn't even know if I knew backstage existed. I just wanted a free ticket.
Yeah.
We didn't have any money, you know?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And so I didn't want to call too soon because he might not be home, you know. I didn't want to call too late because he might be already at the gig. So I waited the day before and I called the house. And it was like around 6 p.m. And the phone picks up and there's just like bottles and, you know, like, you know, music going. And I was like, hi, it's Gene there. And hold on. And they put the phone down, you know, there was no hold button or anything. It was just
right, yeah.
partying going on. And he picks up like, hello. And I was like, Gene? Yeah, who is this? I said, it's Doug Aldrich. And who? And I was like, Doug Aldrich, I auditioned for you guys, you know, last summer or whatever it was. He goes, lose this number. And, all of my guys were behind me, and I turned around and I'm like, I don't think we're going to be able to go. Like, what did he say? What did he say? And I go, he hung up, you know, and that's it.
Oh, dude.
We didn't go to the concert, but.
Of course.
And I wasn't mad about it at all. It was funny, you know.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But,
makes for great stories, obviously.
Yeah, and I never called that number again. I was always afraid, you know. I didn't want to. But years later, I met him, and then of course you and I were on the Kiss cruise together. And
that's right. Yeah.
I still joke with him about that. Like, do you remember when I called you? And he's one of those guys. He remembers everything too, and
he does.
I don't know if it's true, but he says he remembers that.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So he had no excuse for it. He was just, I'm Gene Simmons, and
well, he's just like, you know,
some kid calling my house.
I'm tour. I got this party going on. Who knows what was going on there? But it was definitely sounded fun. I'm sitting there trying to call him to get tickets to go to the show. And he's like,
yeah, exactly. You've probably had to deal with that kid in your own world in one way or another.
Well, they didn't have my number.
Right.
Be like, I usually, you know, I try to do what I can when I see a kid because
me too.
I mean, kids are that's the future of everything. I mean,
absolutely.
I'm really hopeful, and there are some talented Tyler Bryant and Jerry Nichols and the Honey, or the Dirty Honey.
Dirty Honey, amazing, yeah.
There's all these. I'm forgetting about.
Joyous Wolf, Nick's thing is great.
All these guys, there's this guy, Art Mendez, blues player.
Yeah.
All these guys are, you know, but I'm still waiting for like a Van Halen to come out. Well, we got Greta Van Fleet. That's kind of similar to the Zeppelin thing.
Yeah.
But I'm grateful for these kids. So, I mean.
Me too.
When I get a chance to, you know, Robin McCauley's kid plays guitar, and he, I was like, he goes, can you help me? I don't really know what pedals to get or whatever. And I was like, come over to my house and we're going to build a pedal board. Because I've got, as you do, tons of extra gear.
Just lying around, yeah.
Yeah, and we put this pedal board together, and it's like, it made me feel good, you know, because he was like, whoa, that's cool, man, you know, phaser. And
yeah.
And so I like doing stuff like that.
But I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, you know, not only is it the there was no YouTube for us to try and learn songs from. There was no, but there was also sort of like your parents didn't necessarily encourage you. At least my parents didn't necessarily. They never really thought of. We lived in a small town. The idea of playing guitar wasn't a career. It was something you did, you know, at Christmas holidays with your family, playing Christmas songs, and then you put it away. So it wasn't.
When was it that you just? And I want you to jump back to that story. But when was it your parents decided? It's okay. Our son is a.
Actually, it was a little later than you would think. I think there was sort of a. My father was always a bit more adventurous with it, like kind of like, well, you know, do it, you know, go for it and try it. I assume they thought I'd go out at 17, 18 years old and probably come home with my tail between my legs, going like, help me, you know. But it was later on. I was playing with older guys, and I think one of the older guys probably pulled my parents aside and said, I think this kid's got it, or some nonsense like that. Because my father was, like I say, he was always very adventurous that way. So then he kind of threw his full weight behind the thing. But I think there was always that sort of like, you're going to get in that barely working van and drive, you know, 3,000 miles across the country and play like crappy places and sleep on people's floors or whatever the hell it was.
And you're like,
I was honestly the guy that, as I watched my friends kind of go off to college, and you know, different musician guys would sort of fall off because it's like it's not for everybody. And I was still the one going, isn't this great? You know, and I think I'm still kind of that way, really. I think you're still that way. Otherwise, we probably would have. I've always said this, and the cliche of it all is that idea of like, if this was a business and we started in the mailroom and we were here all these years later, we would be presidents of these companies by now. But showbiz isn't like that. Showbiz is a fickle, you know, thing, and people who are on a hit TV series back in the 70s are now not working at all. It's just the way things kind of work, you know, in some cases. So, and I think when I look at you and I go, you know, watching you continually move and continually, just continually growing. And I try to do the same thing myself, to just keep going. And then when you're like looking at guys like Howard Leese or Hugh McDonald, and you go, well, here's the future, you know, at 65, 70 years old, I guess I'll still be doing this. Because I never really think about I never thought about, what am I going to do when I'm 40? What am I going to do when I'm 50? And now I'm thinking, what am I going to do when I'm 60? And I go, well, I'm going to be doing this.
Yeah. That's all we know.
Yeah.
That's all there is. I mean, and it's you still get the same, you probably, like me, still get the same feeling when you hit a certain chord and it works out, or you pull something off.
Yeah.
Or you hit a note vocally or whatever. You're like, yeah. But it's, you say about growing, there's always something to learn, even from, no matter who it is, there's something to be taken away from when you are working with somebody. And I try to do that during the COVID. It's been hard to grow musically a little bit, but I've gotten together with Glenn and we've written some stuff, and he came up with some killer stuff just in the can in case. But my gut's been growing during COVID.
Yeah. Putting on the COVID-19 pounds, as they say. Yeah.
I went to I finally broke down. I went to a place that sells gym equipment, and I got my eye on a one with all the ropes and stuff.
Oh, wow.
And, not rope, but you know what I mean. The wire.
Yeah, you've done more than me. I know it's the constant. I'm one of those guys. It's like, you know, there's always something on television. You know, haven't you seen this Seinfeld episode 1,000 times? This is a good one, though. You know, it's like I could go for a run, or I could go do this and that, but you know, there's a guitar right here, or there's something on TV. It's just I'm what they call indoorsy. You know, I really, you know, I've never been like hiking and let's go water skiing. I'm always like, am I being punished? Why do I have to go be on the ocean? Luckily, my wife is the same way. It's like, no, that's for you people. We're going to be in here. But it's true. I think I've had a lot of opportunities come up during COVID, for writing and creating. And I think that's the important thing, is just to keeping busy. And I think you're in a great position too, because the other thing that I want to bring up really quickly is your ability to flow in and out of Revolution Saints, Burning Rain. Like, you got all these other things on the go, which is a very good example of the hustle that I think musicians like yourself and myself, people are always like, they say to me, they go, well, how do you, they think that like every day I wake up and do 4 bands. I go, no, because a band, say Dead Daisies, it takes up a giant chunk of your life, but there are 365 days in the year. And some of those days you're going, I want to do something else. Yeah.
Wait 1 sec. I just got to here.
There's a fire now. Who knows what's going on?
My dog needs to go out. She's getting potty trained.
Oh, I love it.
You got a puppy during lockdown. I didn't realize that it's so much work. But anyway, back to your point. Yeah, I've for fun sometimes do like some projects or whatever. And
yeah,
I'm trying to thin that out because I really, Dead Daisies is my thing. And
yeah.
I'm super excited about this record with Glenn.
Totally.
For everyone to hear it. And I think December 4th, we got this single coming out, another one called Holy Ground. It's the title track. And then there's some really good songs I'm excited for people to hear. But
I'm really excited to hear it.
The Revolution Saints thing was fun. I don't have any plans to do any more of that. That was, it was cool because it was a niche of the 80s melodic hard rock that, you know, I don't really get an opportunity to do that anymore. And but Burning Rain is an interesting thing because it's like me and Keith St. John had put this thing together back in '98, and we did a record for Japan, and then we did another record for Japan, and then we stopped around 2000, and he joined Montrose, and later I joined Dio, and we just didn't get to it until about 2013. When I was in Whitesnake, I was 1,000% Whitesnake all the time, writing with David and traveling up there, and he'd come to my place. But there was one, at one point, Frontiers Records said, you know, we want to do a record with you with Burning Rain, and I agreed to it, but I never had time to do it. So finally, during the weekends, I'd come home on a Friday night and I'd put my son to bed, and go out in the studio and work on that, and then Monday morning go back to Tahoe to work with David. But we knocked out a 3rd record, and then 2 years ago, or it was last year, I can't even remember. I've lost track of time. We put out another one, but yeah, it's like that is a pet project for me that I really enjoy doing sometimes.
Which I think is important too. It's, you know, I mean, I don't mean to trivialize it in like, say, if you have well, it's almost kind of like, you know, you like I said before, it's sort of like that ability to be able to kind of like, there's 52 weeks a year, and some weeks you're going to be like, okay, and that's kind of how my life is too, because the Slash camp all breaks down for Alter Bridge and Guns N' Roses and other things, and I find other things to do with my time. But you're right, it's like there's your sort of anchor and the main thing that you do, and then you try and find other things to fill your time and scratch other itches along the way.
Crazy talented Toque.
And there's Toque, of course, yeah. I mean, like, that's the thing too, is we, you know, and I get to do other things, you know, because I play guitar, I sing, and other things, and then in Slash I play bass and I sing the harmonies. So
Toque is you and Brent Fitz. See, you call him Fitz.
Yeah. And Corey Churko from Shania Twain's band, and Shane Gallus plays drums. I don't know if you know Shane. He played in.
I've met him, but I'm not.
He's an LA guy, yeah. But he's played with Yngwie and Shanker and all those guys over the years, yeah.
He's been around a long time, and he
has
got the reputation. His feet.
Oh, he's a monster. He really is, yeah.
But and then is there anybody else on guitar too?
Corey Churko from Shania Twain. He plays guitar. Yeah. And Shania Twain, like Kelly Clarkson, Reba McEntire. He plays fiddle. He's ridiculously talented. I've known him since we were teenagers. They're all Canadian guys, so it's that thing. You know.
Talented Canadians.
Very talented guys. Yeah.
That's pretty
talented
cool.
Guys and me. Just kidding. I'm fishing for compliments. Don't fall for that.
I'll tell you what. The Slash band, that is a serious lineup right there with Frank and Fitz and all you guys.
Miles is an angel. Yeah, it's a great thing.
And Slash is just like you said, he keeps getting better and better. at what he does, his thing, you know, it's like, he's just got that thing. It's him.
He's growing. You know, he's playing things, you know, during this whole like last 10 years chapter of his life. He's playing things that he never would have played before. And I think that that's a good sign of somebody who still loves picking up the guitar. There's a lot of people who, you know, who just kind of do what they do, and they pick up the guitar and they go out every year and they do a, you know, a round of dates, and then they go back and put the guitar in mothballs. But that's what's so cool about you guys, is that I think that, you know, there's never this sort of element of like, you're just phoning it in. I don't think you have the ability to phone anything in. And I think that's...
No, I try. I'll tell you what I do is sometimes, it started with Whitesnake, and it would happen sometimes on that Vegas show where I would, because with Whitesnake, we had definite, you know, on and off stage times, and the set would pretty much stay the same once we honed it in.
Right.
There'd be certain times, like during a song, maybe in the beginning of the set, and I'd be like, I'm not feeling it like I should, you know?
Right.
I would go, I gotta, like, and my inspiration was always Kobe Bryant. Because I would be like, what would Kobe do right now? Because he'd come out some nights and he'd be cold a lot of times.
Sure.
And in the fourth quarter, the switch would go off and he'd score 40 points and then win the game with a flash.
Yeah.
So I would always think, like, what would Kobe do right now? And I'd force myself to get into it. Like,
yeah.
Of course, it's amazing playing, you know, with a band like Whitesnake. It's just, but you do it 5 days a week for months and months, and sometimes you'll find yourself mentally drifting.
Yeah.
So I would just try and pull myself back into it, you know.
Being present, whether it's talking to your partner or, you know, your kids, or just being in the moment, is a challenge, you know, for everybody at any given point any day. So being on stage in front of tens of thousands of people can be just as difficult to be in that moment, regardless of what's going on. Because there are times where you're like, I think this cable's jacked, or this pedal's no, you know, you just kind of get distracted by things, and you're like, you know, take a moment, you look out and you're at like download or something like that, and you go, oh my God, you know, but that's part of the beauty of you know, you're professional. Like that's part of the thing too.
The thing I like about when I see those videos of Slash is backstage noodling around to his wife, or be taking a video of him, and he would just be looking at her like, I'm just
yeah. I know, it's like no one cares about this, except everybody cares about that. You know?
Yeah.
Well, my man, I really, really appreciate you checking in with me today, and I can't wait to see you in person. This is the surreal thing about all of this, is this feeling of like, I find the internet and social media to be so deceiving, because we're constantly in contact with our friends, but then you see each other in person, you go, why is this so weird? And you go, oh, I haven't seen you in like a year or months, you know, in person. So,
you know, it was last time I saw you was a jam at the
that's right.
What was that place called?
Lucky Strike in Hollywood.
And we had a jam together, and it was the best. And
Dean Castronova and yourself, yeah.
I really appreciate you.
Anytime, man. I'm hoping someday you and I can find a minute to carve out some time to do a fun pet project of some sort.
Yeah, even a song we should do.
Even a song, yeah.
It is. I know you're busy. I've seen you in LA a few times, and I normally would hold it against you, but I understand.
I appreciate that.
Get some new songs going with Slash and those guys. But at some point, when I'm in Vegas or you're here, we'll get together and get the girls and we'll go out.
Let's do it.
We're going to get past this.
Of course we are.
Now, we've made it through this whole year, somehow, all of us. And, you know, yes, we've lost a lot of people. It's been horrible.
Yeah, we have.
But it seems like now things are, you know, there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel.
Exactly.
And, we just got to stay safe with the mask thing. I mean, I hated my mask. I hated that thing in the beginning.
I know.
Now it's like, I feel like it really is important for the time being until we get a vaccine and all the pharmaceutical stuff sorted out.
And I'm keeping an eye on you guys, because you guys are one of the bands that are actually doing stuff and have a record out. You're coming out. And, you know, from my vantage point, it's kind of cool watching you guys kind of, you know, you're going to go out there and burn a path for us to kind of go, okay, let's follow Doug and Glenn and the guys. And,
well,
and get back out there.
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, as soon as the world, the world's not ready for it yet, but man, I see photos of those photos like you talk about where you're on stage at Download and there's so many people. And I miss that so bad. Not just the playing there, but also going to those shows. Like
Me too.
I love to go to concerts like in LA at the Greek Theater and stuff like that. And I really miss it, man. I can't wait for that to come back.
And it will, that's the exciting thing is that when it does, it's going to be explosive and it's going to be high traffic getting, everybody wanting to go to 100 shows. But you got to take your puppy out, and I got to go. You
got your cat's nails trimmed today.
Yeah, we got the cat's nails trimmed. I made Doug wait while I got my cat's nails trimmed.
Sorry, we're a little off schedule because of the cat. No, it's not, that's no joke, man. I got a Chihuahua that his nails. They start to curl down like this, and I'm like, I gotta cut them.
Yeah, I know.
Like he just bites me. It's like it's not fun.
No, I know. I don't trust myself enough to be able to do it myself, so I get a professional to do it. I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
That's what I should do.
It's probably easy. I don't know.
Dude, we could go on and on. And
I know. Yeah.
What I would like for you to do is get Fitzy and you guys go back on Eddie Trunk, because that got me through in the beginning of the pandemic. You guys going on there talking with Eddie is hilarious.
It shall be done, my friend. Trust me. I mean that nerdy music talk just goes on for hours and hours. We've shut restaurants down, like just sitting there talking about whatever, and we look around, the lights are on. I'm like, oh, we got to get out of here, dude.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me, bro. It's always great to see you.
Anytime.
And give my best to your missus.
You too. Happy holidays and all that stuff too, and Merry Christmas, and have an amazing time.
Thanks, brother.
Love you, brother.
Love you too, man. I'll see you later.
Peace. Bye-bye.